and roll this. I'm going to try to move quickly. I'm also going to redrop the um, presentation in the chat so you have access to it and all the links within it. So that way, if you need to go back and review anything, you've got it. There are a lot of slides because there's a lot of information. The good news is I talk really fast. I'm sure y'all are super excited about that. So here we go. The first thing on this is just some important links that you need. The coordinator manual, the registration guide, test aid toolkit login. You're not going to get access to test aid toolkit. I think last year you guys got it 2 weeks before the test started. So they're not going to send you the link to that for a while. So don't stress if you haven't gotten that yet. There is SAT required training that's linked here. And the last bullet point is probably the most important one for you. And that is going to be my email address in case anything happens and you need to get a hold of me. So again, you'll have access to these links through that presentation that I sent you guys. So I just want to kind of go over the importance of the SAT. I know at the middle school level, some of you guys may not be familiar with the PSAT because, we're so heavily focused on STAR, but it is really important. It is a predictor for success in advanced classes, and that's AP, dual credit, on-ramps. What we know about the PSAT and AP potential is that it can tell us how kids are going to do once they get into high school. So we do really need to emphasize the importance of it to the kiddos. They get supports for scholarship opportunity, and depending on how they do, it will kind of help them know where they need to, what areas they need to focus on to improve. And I think it's also really important to note that it is a nationally normed test. So it's going to give us a really good idea of where the kids are at, and not just at the state level, but across the United States. Colorado actually uses the PSAT for their measure of academic success for their students. And I think it'd be super cool if Texas ever did that, but we all know how much money is involved in Texas testing, so that'll probably never happen. All right, here's our agenda for the day. I won't read it to you guys because I know you all can read. So we're going to focus on some really important things for the test. And I'm highlighting big stuff. I did link that testing coordinator manual. So just make sure that you refer to that for anything that you're like, hey, I need to know more, or you can always email me and we can have a phone conversation. So you guys are going to be really just the whole goal for you. You're overseeing the test at your school. That's the main thing. You really want to make sure student registration is accurate. I submitted student rosters this morning. I uploaded them at the district level. So if there's any inaccuracy in the student roster, you can reach out to me and we can talk through how to correct that. You can go in and add students to registration. I know we had people do that last year. But if we have major errors and we have to re-upload a roster, you have to do that at the school level. And I can help you with that if that's an issue. You're going to be managing the logistics of test day. I will tell you guys, and I know you have experience with this as far as STAR goes, because it's digital, there are advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages are finding enough devices and making sure that they function, that they're charged, but you don't have all the paper to deal with, which is helpful. And I do think that the Blue Book, when it's working properly, is actually pretty straightforward. So here are our key dates and deadlines. It's just important to note that these are the kind of the order that the things happen for the test. We all know how SSOR went, or not SSOR, SSD went because of the time frame and who was going to be in charge of that. So I've only been, I don't know if I introduced myself. This is my ADHD for you guys. I'm Melissa Alexander Blythe. I am the AP, SAT, and PSAT coordinator for the district, and I have been in Fort Worth for less than a year. So a lot of this kind of the way we do things is new to me. So next year I will do that a little bit differently. But you guys were amazing and you got it done. And I was like really super excited about that. So the big thing I would say is that digital readiness check 1 to 2 weeks before the test to make sure you've got your devices, they function, Blue Book is downloaded on them, and that you are, that everything is working properly. I have a question for you just to kind of give a test to see if anybody knows the answer to this. So should you finalize student registration the day before the test to ensure it's most accurate? This is true or false. I want you to drop in the chat whether you think you should wait to finalize test registration till the day before, or it should be done sooner. What do we think? Yes. All caps false. I agree, Leilani. The answer is false. We finalized student registration, well before that to ensure that every kid is going to have access to test day toolkit, blue book, and all that kind of stuff. Or not test day toolkit, just blue book. All right. We're trying to do that at least 3 weeks before. If we have to make some changes a little bit closer, no one's going to fall over dead, but we just want to try to make sure we get that done. So SSOR, which is basically the registration suite for the SAT, you have a couple of particular roles. If you need a quick reference guide, I'm not going to go through this piece of it because it's a little bit time consuming. Like if you have not accessed College Board yet and all that kind of stuff, there's a quick reference guide for how to do that that I created. So download that, go through it, and if you need more help, you can reach out to me and I can walk you through it as well. So that's the first step. And I will say, if you don't have access to SSOR, you're going to email me and I'm going to send you an invitation and get you access. So just keep that in mind. And that's all in that quick reference guide as well. Your job in SSOR essentially is just to validate the registration and ensure that the students are correctly registered and that they have the appropriate accommodations. My guess is you guys don't have a ton of kids with accommodations because the parents had to fill the forms out and turn them in. If they didn't, then you don't have to worry about it. And you also need to remember that that was just a request for accommodations. College Board does not have to grant the accommodation. They used to be super stingy with them. They're a little looser with them now. So you'll just have to wait and see till you get that back. You're going to want to review them, and I would review them with your SSOR. I'm sorry, your SSD. So many acronyms, so little time. You're going to want to review that with your SSD just to make sure that it's appropriate, and then you're going to go in and approve them and make sure that if there are any updates that come through, that you add those to the student for their accommodations prior to the test. Here's a quick check for understanding. Which of the following should you ensure before locking your registration data? Now, you may not have read through the testing coordinator manual yet, so I just want to see what we think based on our guts around testing. So should we understand that should we ensure all students are registered, that all accommodations are confirmed, and that any students that are labeled away, which you guys are not going to have to deal with, are included? What do we think? Look how smart you guys are, all of the above. Everyone gets 100. All right, so these are those key steps that we just talked about. I want to review them, confirm students, review the data, add or delete as needed, and lock the SSOR roster, okay? Validating registration data is really important. I kind of took the uploading from you, so you didn't have to stress about that. I was very grateful to ADQ and Dan. They got me a huge file. I uploaded with 10,000 pieces of data in it. I uploaded it, had to upload it a couple times because we had to make a few changes. So all of your registration data or all your students are in the system. You don't have to worry about doing that. Tried to take something off your plate there because I know you guys have a lot going on. So you are basically going to review the data and make sure there are no major data issues, that there are no file swaps, that for some reason, McClung got McLean or vice versa, right? And that a large number of students aren't missing. You can add students individually, but if you're missing 50 kids, we're going to want to re-upload the roster so you don't have to spend a million hours adding students in, okay? And then there's a registration guide if you have any real troubleshooting issues that I linked here as well. Now, I'm going quickly because we have a lot of information to get through and you have access to this, but if you need me to slow down or you need me to repeat anything, please ask, and I'm happy to do that. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so validating data. Once you determine that there are no major issues, you can view and validate the data, including minor corrections, simple stuff. Changing if the student got if they got labeled a female but they're a male, or their birth date is wrong, easy stuff. Delete students who maybe transferred. You also might need to add students if you have any homeschool kids who have wanted to test at your site. That happens actually quite a bit. Not a huge number, but we get at least 10 or 15 every test. It's not hard to do. You're going to email me if that's the case. I'm going to walk you through it. There's a memo that they have to fill out, sign, they pay for the test, they show up, you register them. Super simple. They're going to test like any other kid, not hard at all. And I'm happy to help you through that. You're going to want to make sure to include any appropriate codes for kids who are, coming in from out of the camp, from another campus, or I'm sorry, from homeschool, or kids that are labeled away, though I doubt, unless you have any homebound kids, that's going to be the case. If you need any additional support for how to register kids, I have linked the SAT the SAT help page for that there. Adding students is super easy. You just log in, you navigate to registration roster, and you click add new student. The cool thing about College Board is they try to make it as user-friendly as possible. Sometimes these platforms are like, I'm hunting for 1,000 hours to find something. That's not the case. But if you get there and you get stuck, you can call me and I will walk you through it. The one disadvantage that I have as the district coordinator is I don't actually have access to SSOR. I don't actually get to see what it looks like except for when I attend training. But I'm familiar enough with it after going to the large district training that I can help you. So you'll add new students, you'll add their information. If they got accommodations, you'll make sure those are there, and then you'll save it. Super simple, not hard to do. That's going to be if you miss a kid or two. Yes, I just uploaded this morning, Mr. Poe. So it might be that it won't show up for a few hours. So give it a little bit of time. And if you want to start looking at that now and make any corrections, I think that's smart, just because it'll take it off your plate. If for whatever reason it doesn't show up for you, that might mean it's not showing up for other people. Call me, we'll fix it. Deleting or editing students, same process, guys. You just basically find the record of the student that you want to delete, and you navigate and you click delete and you confirm. Like, it's not hard. If you have to edit, same process. You just click edit, make the changes that you need. Make sure you save them, though. We had some issues with people last year who went and edited a bunch of kids and forgot to save, and they had to redo it, and that nobody wants to live that life. So, all right. Here's a quick check for understanding. Question, true or false, you cannot add a student to SSOR after the registration window closes. What do you think? It is false. We technically have the registration window, but if be great if I didn't pull my headphones out, talk with my hands so much. We technically have the registration window, but if you need to add a kid and you have to even add them the day before the test, I think I did that with a few people last year. Leilani, I want to say that with you, we had to add a couple of kids on like the day before the test. Is that true? Do you remember? Am I misremembering that? Yeah. All right. Here's the big one, guys, digital readiness, ensuring students can access the test. Now, here's the thing I'm going to start by telling you. I've already reached out to technology, and they are going to, so let me back up. College Board, God love them, and as much money as we spend on them, they are notorious for sending out a Blue Book update 5 minutes before we take the test, which is why we take the test toward the middle of the window, because we like to avoid the headaches that come with that. Now, they have promised us they're not going to send out like updates on a Tuesday, because that's a lot of times when the testing window starts, but they are saying that they may send out updates like on a Friday. If that happens, I will let you know, because the kids will have to like download the update like by logging in. It just automatically downloads. But the key to make sure that the kids can access the test is that they have actually gone and clicked on the Blue Book icon and accessed it. Because then once they do that, it's downloaded. It already exists in the space, but they do have to actually download it to the computer. We do push it out for availability, or at least technology does. Obviously, I'm not in charge of that. And they're on top of it. Technology knows, and they're going to be looking out for the updates as well. College Board will let us know if there's an update, but that's just a really important thing to note for digital readiness is that Blue Book has to be accessed. I'm actually going to talk about that again, but I just really want to emphasize that. So really what you want to do is 2 weeks before the test, and I know that may not be feasible. Like I remember a few of my post-secondary specialists last year telling me like, look, I barely got on my devices 3 days before the test. If that's the case, it is what it is. You just want to make sure that you go in and the kids access Blue Book. Now, I know that that can be complicated with kids testing and or kids in class and all that kind of stuff. What you could do is take the devices to the classes that you have, like an English class or however you want to do it, and have the kids actually log in, download it. That's the recommendation, but I know that that may not be the reality. So if you actually have to go into the device and click it and make sure it's downloaded, as much of a pain as that is, it may be the best way to do it. Um, so, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. You just want to make sure that they're able to get into it. The assistive technology is assigned to them. So when they log in, if they need it, it will automatically populate and be part of Blue Book. So you don't have to worry about that. Um, Preparing the testing rooms. It's going to be like preparing any testing room. There are guidelines in the testing coordinator manual. But basically the big key is making sure that there's access to power, and that you have some extra chargers, because we know that some of our devices lose power really quickly. I know that that's been an issue on campuses. So I would have chargers, make sure the devices are charged. And then if you have to swap chargers, kind of like you do during STAR, then that may be something that you need to think about doing. Also, this is really important. Oops, I'm so sorry. This last piece, ensuring the room is distraction free. What that will mean, and this is crucial, and I know that some of the post-secondary specialists are really good at working this out. You're going to want to work with the office around announcements to make sure there are no announcements during the testing time, and you may need to adjust lunch. So you're also going to want to talk to your cafeteria to see if that needs to happen, and then you'll make those arrangements. Also, you want to ensure that there are no bells. So it will be bell free, making sure there are no announcements, and making sure that the kids have access to food if they test long. How they'll do that, whether they'll bring them sack lunches to the room, however you want to do that is your call on your campus, but you just want to keep those 3 things in mind. There are some Blue Book updates this year. So I'm actually excited about this, and I think it's going to make it easier for you guys and for the kids. There are some, they're really going to enhance student experience, essentially. It's been updated to make the navigation easier. There's extended support for assistive technologies like screen readers, and the screen readers are available to everybody. The cool thing about that is if you have kiddos who maybe don't have a 504 or something like that, but you know that they need the support, the screen reader is going to be there to help them. And I think that can also help our emerging bilingual kiddos too, who do a little bit better with that. So additionally, the coordinators can now monitor device status, including battery life and network connections. So if you see a kid whose battery is about to die and you don't want them to have to re-log in, you're going to run over there, give them a charger, plug them in. Now you've avoided having to like log in and do all the stuff to restart their test. Okay. One of the biggest improvements in Blue Book this year is the accessibility options. All students get to use screen reader and text to speech, so they can talk into it. They don't have to type, which is super cool. And other assistive technologies work more effectively. Blue Book also supports customized settings for font size, contrast, and whatever a kid needs, if they need to make it bigger, etc. So that's, to me, really, really great. They're trying to make it as accessible as possible. There is a new test preview feature that helps students get comfortable with Blue Book before the actual test. It's got sample questions. It allows kids to navigate the interface, but it doesn't generate any scores. So this is a great way to help students kind of like just get familiar with the test if you have this as an option. As an English teacher, I know this was, because everybody takes English, right? So that, you might be able to work out with your English teacher to do, or one of your math teachers to do something like this if it works for your campus. I recommend it, but at the same time, I am also aware of how real life works on campuses. So you guys do what you got to do. Handling technical issues. So if a student encounters technical issues during the test, Blue Book has a couple of troubleshooting options. You can restart the application. You can use the device swap feature, but where's Kelly? We're gonna strongly try not to do a device swap. Am I right, Kelly? Yes. Uh, Kelly last year, she had a couple of kids. This was so upsetting, who literally finished the test, but for some reason it didn't score them and they had to retest. And we were like, we tried everything we could to get it fixed. And we just swapped devices. We did all sorts of things and it didn't work. They have assured me I made a really big grumpy noise during the big meeting this year with SAT and College Board and said, we can't do that to kids. It's not fair to kids to do that to them. And they agreed, but they're also like, hey, we can only do so much. And I'm like, well, you got to fix it. So supposedly it's supposed to be better. If you have to use it to do a device swap, you want to consult the testing coordinator manual, but I'm going to once again really highly recommend that you don't do that. If you have to, but let's avoid it if we can. Proctors and coordinators can report issues through Blue Book in real time. This is different than before when you had to wait until after to report. But that would have been really useful for like the situation that Kelly had. If it wasn't recording the test and they could go in and like on the back end and have fixed that, those poor kiddos would not have had to retake the test. So the real-time device monitoring basically allows you to really, I think that if you're having connectivity issues, you'll see that across multiple devices, which will be helpful to see if you could troubleshoot that. Although we're at the mercy of our network and we only can do what we can do, which is why we have a window of testing in case we have to move the day. And so you'll also receive alerts if there's any malfunctions or any issues with Blue Book or the connection. Test Day Toolkit. I know many of you have seen Test Day Toolkit before, but some of you may not have. And again, you won't get access to it until I think 2 weeks before the test. PSSS, is that correct? Was it 2 weeks before the test last year? Do you remember? Anybody? Give me a thumbs up if you remember. Kelly's saying she's not sure. Dave, do you remember when you got access to Test Day Toolkit? It was, Tori says she's already got access. That's excellent. Normally they're stingy with that. Okay, well, if she's already got access and you guys are not already registered and signed up, go get access to that. You're going to get familiar with it. It's great. I'm super glad to know. You feel like it was earlier than that, Phil? Okay. They told us a minimum of 2 weeks, but if they're giving it now, I think they're trying to prevent people from being so frustrated and annoyed that they got it last minute. So when you use Test Day Toolkit, you're going to assign proctors and students to rooms, provide start codes and monitor testing, report technical issues immediately and any irregularities you want to report immediately. And you're just going to basically track student submission. That last bullet point, I cannot emphasize that enough. There are a number of PSSs on here who have also seen kids finish the test and not click submit and then have to retest. So what you want to see is there's this little screen that pops up that says, you have submitted your test. It's like, I think it's a smiley face. And so you want the smiley face. We want to make sure that the test is submitted. Your task as the testing coordinator is to assign students to testing rooms. You can do it automatically or manually. That's up to you. You will provide the proctors with the start and room codes. That's all going to be available to you in Test Day Toolkit. You're going to submit reports and irregularities and confirm answers, okay? I think I just said that. Maybe that was a duplicate slide. Whoops. Well, you guys got to hear it twice. So one cool thing is automated room assignments. It's a new feature this year. That has not always been the case. It had to be done manually before. So I actually think that's probably the most useful thing on this. There's also improved irregularity reporting. Last year, I think it was pretty time consuming to submit the irregularities. Am I right? If you guys, those of you that had to do it, it took a hot minute to do. So we're glad that that's faster. And you will now receive real-time alerts for students' answer submission. And that did not happen. And that was probably the #1 complaint when I went to the large district meeting. And so now you actually get to see on your proctor screen and on your coordinator screen that's submitted, which is going to be like, take a picture of that because now you know if they say the kids didn't submit that you've got evidence that they did. So it's super easy to use Test Day Toolkit. You're just going to log into your College Board professional account. And if you don't have one of those, you definitely want to get one soon, like in the next couple of days. You're going to navigate to Test Day Toolkit. You're going to review the rosters, provide proctors with those codes. And once again, you're going to monitor and submit for irregularities. There's also real-time attendance tracking, which I think is helpful for kids, so that you know you can look and see who showed up and who didn't. That way, if you need to call kids, because you are going to have a late testing room, which you're able to do, and there's information in the manual for that, you can do that. But also, if you need to have kids test the next day for kids who didn't show, you can create your list much more quickly. You also, it's a quick report to do irregularities directly through before it was much more complicated. So your tasks are to ensure all proctors are trained, to help set up room for technical issues and oversee testing operations and manage the test security. Now, the proctor training. Here's the cool thing, guys. You don't actually have to train them unless you want to. There's a couple of ways you can do it. Everybody has to watch the required training on College Board. Once you assign the proctor and you've sent them their information to get to Test Day Toolkit, they cannot access anything until they do the training. So if you don't have time to do the training, you're going to send them the email, you're going to send them the proctor training, and then you get to monitor who's done it. Now, or you could bring them all in one room and have them all do it together at the same time, or have them come in at lunch. We all know teachers get busy. I may or may not have been the teacher that went to the very last possible EOC training that I could because I had too many papers to grade. So, and I get that. So you can totally do that, but you don't actually have to create anything unless you want to. So that takes another thing off your plate that you don't have to do. You don't have to create the training because they have to go through the College Board training anyway. It's located in Test Day Toolkit, and it's easy for you to get to access and assign when you start assigning proctors. Test Day security. This is pretty straightforward, guys. Just don't let the kids have smartwatches, smartphones, and any other prohibited devices. I would collect them, or you could have them turn them off and put them in backpacks. That's how we used to do it for AP testing, but there's always a kid who leaves their phone on. There's always a kid. You guys know there's always a kid who does it. There's always a kid whose watch goes off. And then you're like, now I have to report that as a testing irregularity. So you can do that how you want. Turn the phones off, collect them, make sure they don't have watches on. And that's really the big stuff. If you have kids that are disruptive or whatever, you're supposed to report that. I mean, use your judgment. If you've got middle schoolers, you can only do so much. But once they get going, I think it will be fine. They can have snacks and water. There's not rules about that for testing, as far as I know. Unlike STAR, I know that they can only have like a drink under their desk or whatever. So that's also a little bit different. Okay. This you may, if you haven't seen the manual yet, you may not know the answer to this question, but this is a test to see if you guys get it right. Proctors should allow students to leave the testing room once they've completed their test, even if other students are still testing. True or false? I love that, like, you guys just automatically know that that's not true. No, they cannot leave the testing room once they're finished. We have to dismiss everybody at the same time because that's how all the testing works, just for testing security. So nobody goes and gives answers to anyone. It's harder to do on the PSAT, but it still can be done. So important next steps. You're going to make sure you cross-check accommodations. Okay, just make sure that those are in place. My guess is there's not going to be a campus that has more than 10 students with accommodations. Does anybody have a ton of kids with accommodations? Tell me in the chat if you do. And I know you guys can see me looking off to the side. Oh, well, Tori, you got a big campus. Dang it. Okay. Well, so if you need support with that, let me know. And if you want to like have a testing accommodation room, that may be better, especially a lot of the accommodation kiddos may have extra time. Wait until you see what gets approved. Really, Dave? Huh. Okay, kidding, but not. Well, it all depends on what's submitted and what College Board approves. The biggest accommodation that they're going to approve is extra time, because that's most everything else is built into the test automatically, which is nice. So if you have an extra test, if you have an extra time, like a group of extra time students, ideally you test them in one room together, because typically it's time plus 50% or time plus 100%. I rarely see time plus 100%. So it's usually time plus 50%. They honestly probably won't need it, but I would test them all in 1 or 2 rooms together just to avoid having to keep kids longer. So just keep that in mind. Your bells, your cafeteria schedule, your announcements, and testing kids that are accommodated together just to keep you make your life a little bit easier. You have 100% room and a 200% office. There you go. And I'm guessing your 200% kids, that's probably not very many. Too. Yeah. That's pretty uncommon to have that much time. But if they've got it, great, and you have a spot for it, then you know exactly what you're doing. I will tell you, and I'm going to volunteer a couple of my people just because I love them and they love me too. But I like Dave he's got a really big campus and he's kind of a guru of logistics and putting things together. So if you get if you're really struggling, reach out to me and I can kind of connect you with him. I try not to do that too much to my people, but they have really great knowledge of how to do these tests. Finalizing registration, this is a big one. You want to make sure your roster is accurate. You want to validate it. And then any students that are away or properly registered. If you have that away issue, reach out to me. It's very unusual. Some of the bigger campuses have it. But the test day coordinator manual or the testing coordinator manual will walk you through that if necessary. But I can help as well. Handling irregularities. So here are some of the big ones. Device malfunctions, any accommodation issues, and student absences or early dismissals. I will tell you, if you dismiss kids early, if a proctor lets the kids go early because they're done and they're like, I just want to leave, or you know how kids are, and he does, or she does, then you will have to report that as an irregularity. And the bad thing about that is it could get those kids scores canceled, and you do not want to do that. So let's avoid letting kids go early just because it's a pain in the booty for everybody. Again, you'll submit those irregularities through Test Day Toolkit, and then you will have to request retesting if you have a kid who had a test issue. I worked with Kelly last year to help her request retesting, but boy, did that take forever for them to approve. So that was a pain. And I think a couple of the kids we gave them a pass just because it was such a pain. And one of the girls really wanted to take the test and it was disappointing. So hopefully we do not have that issue this year, but as big as we are, I always anticipate that something happens. Retesting and rescheduling. If you have to retest a kid because of a technical failure, like the Blue Book issue, you'll request that through Test Day Toolkit. If there are any major disruptions, like if you have a fire alarm and you have to leave the building or whatever, that would need retesting. So make sure that we don't have a fire alarm or a lockdown drill scheduled. And then rescheduling, you'll just reschedule within the window, but the window is the entire month of October, guys. So you don't have to worry. As long as you can get it done before the end of October, then you're good to go. Technology setup, this is important. Ensuring there are enough devices, ensuring all devices have Blue Book installed, and students must click on the app so that it downloads. Have them do this prior to test date. If you don't want to have them do it, you or your tech people can do it. But the less you guys have to do, I think the better. You just have to figure out what's going to work for your campus. Troubleshooting technology issues. I would say the biggest one is the network issue, having unstable networks. So think about that when you're planning your testing rooms. Is there an area of your campus that has better Wi-Fi? Use those rooms. And if you run into like a roadblock with that and like you're having trouble with campus administration getting that set up, call me and I'm happy to talk to principals, assistant principals, whoever I need to talk to help you make that happen. Just because we want to avoid having to pull kids out of instruction time to do testing is, they already test so much with MAP and STAR and everything else. The less that we have to pull them out of class, the better. So if you have an issue with Blue Book, sometimes honestly restarting the device and relaunching Blue Book is the most helpful thing. I know that was like what we did in 1995 with our PCs, but it still kind of is true today. 1995 for those of us who are old enough to have remembered 1995. I would definitely check the Wi-Fi connection and redo that. Sometimes turning Wi-Fi off and turning it back on is honestly really helpful. But again, I think picking the rooms is going to be really important. And if you have to move to a backup device, make sure you follow the steps really carefully. So technology support on test day. I think it's really important to have a technology coordinator. If you have somebody on campus who you can pull that can go from room to room or pull kids into a room if necessary, pull their device, take their device and sit in a room and work on it. If you have a tech person who's willing to do that, or if you have a person who you know that would be helpful with that and you're able to get a sub for them, I would do that just because you having a set of extra hands is really helpful. I will continue to volunteer my services. Like if you are short on people and you need someone to come and sit in the hallway, I got you. So please let me know. I did it last year. I proctored AP testing last year. I am available, and honestly, I like being around kids because I miss it. So I'm happy to do it. Please just reach out. Is there a deadline for accommodations to show up on the roster? That's a great question. Sorry, I didn't see some of these questions. I have surprisingly few at the moment. So College Board is notoriously slow. If they haven't popped up yet, give it, we just submitted them. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks. Some of them will be really fast for whatever reason. Give it a week or so. And if we haven't heard from them, Jennifer, call me and we'll call SSD and see if we need to do anything. Blue Book. Oh, Dave, that's good to know. Blue Book appears to still work on Chromebooks. That's helpful because I think we were struggling with that or were concerned that they were only going to work on Macs. It was only going to work on the MacBooks. So the fact that it works on Chromebooks makes it so much easier. I know you guys can often access those a lot, a lot easier than the MacBooks. My question got buried in the chat. Can you confirm the testing window? It is 10:15 to 10:18. Oh, I just said it was just a typo. That's my bad. That's what I get for typing something at the last minute. Sorry about that, Phil. Thanks for catching that for me, my friend. One of my 8th graders has a sister that will be taking the test as long as she is not testing. She's not testing her sister there. Oh, so she's going to be a proctor? Am I understanding that?
Yes, she's one of my 8th grade teachers, and typically
okay.
Teachers, but her sister goes here as an 8th grade.
Yeah, she can proctor as long as she's not proctoring her sister. She's totally fine. Yeah. And the cool thing about proctors for SAT guys is like you can pull anybody who's who's got a driver's license and is over the age of 18 to proctor. College Board is not near as particular as the state of Texas for the STAR. So if you have like PTA parents that want to volunteer to proctor, if you have like if you have paras that want to volunteer to proctor, if you have just school volunteers that are like, hey, I'm here, I'm available, I'll proctor for you. If they can follow instructions and operate a computer, put them in there. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? Sometimes it's like, it could be a toss up. It could be a roll of the dice, depending on who you get. But if you have an active like parent teacher student association or an active alumni association, or like your friend owes you a favor, man, call them up. Who cares? Like, bring them in. The proctor responsibilities are pretty straightforward. They have to get them registered for the test, ensure that they're on the test, and just make sure that they're following the rules. It's not challenging, and there isn't the same, like you want to be, how with STAR, you can't sit down, which is so fun. There's no rule like that for SAT and PSAT. As long as they're like walking around occasionally, like we're good. So College Board is much more relaxed on that kind of stuff. Obviously, they don't need to be on their phones. That's not a thing. But overall, as they follow the script, make sure the kids are doing what they're supposed to and they're logged in and watching, we're good to go. So topics to make sure that they understand is how to access Test Day Toolkit, making sure the accommodations are appropriate and they're managing breaks. For administering accommodations, I would do like Dave is doing and have two, like if you have 1 or 2 rooms, that way you only have to worry about training one person on accommodations. And it's better if it's a person who already knows about accommodations. That's helpful. If they don't, it's super easy. Handling technical issues, so if they have to help a kid restart a test, and ensuring that the test timing and transitions between sections are appropriate, but the test kind of gives you all of that, so it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure if I were on a campus, here is how I would do it. I would send everybody the College Board training to make sure that they watched it. I would probably send them a Google form that asks them a few questions to make sure that they actually paid attention to it and they didn't like have a student go through it for them, because we all live in the real world and know how things work. And then I would just make sure that I covered these few things with them, maybe in an email or in a short, quick meeting. Obviously, you want to pull teachers that you trust. to do it, or people that you trust to make sure that they are going to follow the instructions. And you'll know if they haven't done the training because it will tell you it's not done and they won't be able to access test day toolkit. So it's going to be important that they don't wait till the last minute to do that. Like probably something I would have done. I hate to admit it, but it's true. All right. Proctor rules, monitoring students, making sure that they're not running around being crazy. And one of the big things is if they use scratch paper, you just have to collect it and then securely store it. And obviously reporting any irregularities. So which of the following is the proctor's responsibility? A, B, C, or D? Timing, collecting scratch paper, reporting tech issues, or all of the above? Yep, they're doing it all, but it's pretty straightforward. You also, again, the pressure of this is not near the pressure of the EOC. So I would just keep that in mind that it is lower stakes for the kids in a lot of ways. And it's lower pressure for the proctors, which makes it nice. Final wrap up and our next steps. Look at us, you guys. I got this done in 45 minutes. I'll be taking any, Uber Eats donations or anything today from you guys. I'm just joking. So you're going to confirm student registration and accommodations. You will conduct your digital readiness check. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. If you need help conducting your digital readiness check, call me. I will come to your campus and help you log into devices if I have to. I'm not just saying that. I actually will. You just have to give me a heads up. Don't tell me like the day of. I just need a little bit of leeway. But if you want to email me and say, hey, Melissa, I got nobody to help me do this, I'm your girl. I got you. You want to prepare testing rooms, make sure they're ready to go. You want to make sure your proctors are trained, and you want to just be ready to address those irregularities. It's really straightforward, guys. There is that testing coordinator manual is your very best friend. Please refer to it. Please review it. Make sure that you have gone through the whole thing, and that if you have any questions or you read something and you're like, this makes no sense, reach out to me and I can explain it to you. If you're not super familiar with College Board's platform, it can be a little overwhelming at first, but once you get in there, you realize how straightforward and easy it is to operate. Okay, before we do the feedback, do you guys have any big burning questions, or did I miss any questions in the chat?
Approximately, do you know how long the teacher training is? If they just go straight through it, how long it takes?
Yeah, it's not super long. I want to say they're like 15 to 20-minute training modules, and there may be like 3 or 4 of them. It's not really complicated. And the good news is too, if they've already been through training before, they have one where they could just go through like the refresher. So it's shorter.
Thank you.
Yes, Tori, is there an attendance list, a link? Oh, for today. No, I'm just going to download the attendance from who was here. You don't have to worry about the attendance link. And Tori, that's totally fine. If you want to just like call me when we get off the phone, we can do that. And then so guys, if you'll go ahead and give feedback for today, I would really appreciate it. I went quickly mostly because that training coordinator manual is there for you. I wanted to highlight the most important things, but I also don't want to take up any more of your time than necessary. Do we have to trade a Google form for our proctors? Lakendra, you don't have to. If you want to use one, if you would like me to create one that you could use that covers the basics, I can do that and send it out. Would you guys want me to create a Google form of like the important pieces of the Okay, I can do that. Let me put it on my to-do list. But yeah, I'll do that for you and I'll get that out to you. I'm not going to promise you this week, but I can promise you by next week if that's soon enough. Does that feel soon enough for everybody? Is that okay? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay. Writing this down so I will not forget, because I will forget if I don't. Okay. Any other questions before we go? Please make sure you guys do the feedback.